And it was everywhere. And people were just taking it and reporting it as fact and saying, you were fourth most in the country in NIL expenditures. I saw it on the green chart. Who made the green chart? What are the numbers from? I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships. The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. And welcome to Juck on Bucks. Appreciate y'all so much for joining me on a Thursday morning. Yesterday's show, I asked you to help me get off of 13,000 subscribers, 100 subscriber day. Thank you so much. We're out of there. On to 14. You guys hooked me up. We have now passed some of the legacy media, at least one of them, the legacy Ohio State media, Cleveland.com. Been around 8 years doing this stuff, and we just blew right by them. So appreciate you guys for that. Always fun when we take down one of the old dinosaurs of the industry. The JUCKEYES, very powerful, leaving them in the dust. Sunday at 3:30, we are going to do a live show. We'll probably start at 3:20 or so. At 3:30, we're coming on here, and we've got a decision, our first one of the year, Caden Dixon Wyatt. That's Chris Henry Jr.'s teammate out at Mater Dei. He's going to make his decision, and this recruitment has been kind of Ohio State, Oregon for a while. Both teams have had momentum, kind of flip in one or the other's favor. Anytime it's an Ohio State-Oregon battle, I really want to win, pound these guys into submission. We didn't do great last year against them, but we got a couple of wins ourselves with, Trajan Odom, a couple other guys. But when we talk about this particular player, Buckeyes already got 3 wide receivers in the class. Oregon does not have one yet. Could that potentially affect or factor into his decision? I'm sure it does. Caden Dixon Wyatt, 185, 6'2" or so, top 100 overall recruit in 24/7, but he's a 3-star and on 3. So opinions differ wildly. I tend to favor 247's rankings here because they fit with Brian Hartline's, and I'm going to defer to him. At the Las Vegas All-22 tournament, he earned the Alpha Dog honors. That's a big tournament. A lot of top players. He also was the highest Spark graded athlete. That's their combine testing. So supreme athlete. If we're looking at Chris Henry Jr., compared to last year, Chris Henry Jr. would be Quincy Porter. Caden Dixon Wyatt would be your Phillip Bell, kind of your do-it-all guy. Pretty good at everything. 6'1", 6'2", 50-50 balls, tough catches. It kind of fits right there if we're looking at last year's class or 25's class. Got some explosion, really shifty, good after the catch, high points the ball, a bit of bully ball, and a guy who no doubt Brian Hartline can turn into an NFL dude. So Sunday, live, 3:15-ish, 3:20, we'll meet here for his decision. And I have now figured out, guys, how to pull it up on the screen as we're watching together. Last year, when we were all, we were bootleg last year. We were watching on my iPad here. Now I can actually put it on there for you. So that'll be great. Okay, so to be clear, these are my top 25 rankings nationally. This is not a power rating. I do power ratings for conference play. For conferences, we're playing the same type of football. Usually we're playing similar opponents, a similar schedule, and we're all going for the same prize. And power rating has a lot of value in conference play for me. Different for the top 25. For the top 25, we're mixing all sorts of conferences together. There's a mixture of criteria. There's a lot of personal feelings, personal to myself, whether that be towards certain players or coaches or freshmen who are coming in that I think are going to make an impact that wouldn't show up in a power rating. For instance, there are Big 12 teams I have in here that are ranked ahead of, Big 10 teams. Well, I think that Big 10 team just might be a 3-point favorite on a neutral field. In a power rating, that Big 10 team would be ahead of them every time. But that Big 10 team is not going to play that Big 12 team this year unless they make it to the postseason. So this is my top 25 regular season as we enter. This will update once a month, but this is the initial one for 25 as we exit spring. And we don't even have the entire transfer portal settled yet, but not a lot of news going on. So I figured, why don't we just do this week? So here we go. All right. At number 25, I've got Texas A&M and Mike Elko. Mike Elko in year one almost took these guys to the SEC championship game with a true freshman quarterback in Marcel Reed. You got Elko and Reed in year 2. They lost some key pieces in the transfer portal. They got a couple of good ones back with the top 10, top 11 transfer portal class. And I think that Elko's just the dude. I see them continuing to get better and better. They're obviously having great now success recruiting. They're certainly not lacking for any funds to try to get their goals accomplished. And I just really am a believer in Mike Elko. So Texas A&M cracks my top 25 at number 25. At number 24, I've got Curt Cignetti in Indiana. There are some people who are much higher on Indiana than me. I think we see a regression from Indiana. They're not going to be terrible, but the top 25 team, I don't have them in my top 5 in my Big Ten power ratings. I'm just not sold on them totally, nor am I sold on Michigan. Many people have them top 15-ish. I've got them at 23. My guess is, and I'm just trying to put myself in their situation here, I'm starting Bryce Underwood, if not game 1, really early in the season. And I think he's going to have some growing pains. He's going to take his normal freshman lumps. He's going to win some games too. They've got, despite losing Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham off the defensive line, they got some dudes popping up in there that I think are going to be pretty quality. Another quality offensive line. They bring in Justice Haynes from Alabama, who I think is a pretty damn good back. I certainly wanted him at Ohio State when he was out there in the portal, and there was some talk about that. But they got him. They got another one on top of him. They got 3, as a matter of fact, 3 transfer portal running backs, I think. So they did pretty good in the portal. They've got some studs coming up through the pipeline with the top 5 class last year. We'll see if any of those freshmen contribute. And ultimately, a solid team, a top 25 team as we enter the season. At number 22, I've got Louisville. Louisville, I'm a big believer in Braum. The guy just gets it done consistently. This team, you can count on for, it seems like 9 wins every year. And I think we got another situation like that from Louisville. At number 21, I've got Kansas State. I really like Chris Kleiman. I really like Avery Johnson. He's really exciting to watch, throws a lot of picks. Will this be the year he turns it around a little bit? They can certainly win the Big 12. Anybody can. But I'm looking forward to that. 21, Kansas State. At number 20, we've got Auburn, and it feels dirty saying it. I think Hugh Freeze is a despicable human being. I just can't stand him. Everything about him rubs me wrong. But he goes out and gets Jackson Arnold. The team gets a year older. They were pretty young last year. They bring in a really good freshman class. I think we'll see some contributions from them. And that might actually end up being Deuce Knight if Jackson Arnold isn't playing good enough. They got a freshman who's a total stud that is physically ready. Might he end up starting? I don't know. But I just think Hugh Freeze in year 3 now is going to take the turn in Texas. Auburn's going to be a little bit better this year. Either dude is an upgrade from Peyton Thorne last year. I know that. But a lot of close games, and I just see them taking a next step. We'll see if it happens. Number 19, I've got Nebraska. This year, Matt Rule's 3rd. They take the next step. This is not going to be a team that's flirting with 500 in bowl eligibility anymore. I expect Dylan Raiola to get a little bit better in, I don't know, it's not been a full year yet with Dana Holgerson, but he's going to get better. They also brought in some transfer portal pieces, including Rocco Spindler on the offensive line from Notre Dame, Elijah Pritchard from Alabama on the offensive line. Then they bring in a really good linebacker, Sean McCullough from Oklahoma. The biggest piece on that defense, Williams Nwari from Missouri. Williams Nwari, 6'7", 265 pounds. He was a top 5 overall guy, went to Missouri 1 year, and now he switches over to Nebraska. They've got dudes now. They've got dudes at Nebraska. I expect them to be a top 20 team. At number 18, I've got Oklahoma. I don't think they ultimately end the season here. They got a hellacious schedule, but John Mateer is sensational. He just is sensational. I can't get enough of the guy. I wish I had found him earlier in his career than I don't know. It was the Apple Cup was the first time I saw him last year. I'm like, who is this guy? He's just great. So he comes in from Washington State. These guys are going to stick around for a while. They're going to stick around for a while because they play solid defense, and the offense now going to get a big upgrade with John Mateer. At number 17, a team I picked to win the ACC in the playoffs last year, Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes. Now they got Carson Beck in. This is going to be an exciting team to watch. I mean, there's a lot of intrigue here with the Carson Beck experiment. Remember in 2023, this dude was awesome. In 24, he was a pick machine. It was like a different guy. Now coming off the injury, does that physically, fully heal? Mario Cristobal gets a lot of crap. Obviously, they invest a lot of money in Miami football. They get a lot of good players. They've got good players everywhere. Mario Cristobal, I actually think, is a fantastic coach. He's made some dumb decisions at the end of games. He gets labeled with that and kind of mocked over that. But the way he's doing things, the way he's building the program, the way he came out and said about the after the Nico thing, like, if somebody's going to try that here, just hit the door. Like, just hit the door. Nobody's holding us hostage. Like, he's a classic, no nonsense offensive lineman. And I love the way he runs a program. So I hate the Canes. I think he's a really good coach, and I expect them to be, pushing for a top 15 spot as we head into the season. At number 16, another Big Ten appearance, another program I hate, USC. USC at 16 for me, probably higher than most. I hate Lincoln Riley with the passion of 1,000 suns. I really want nothing but failure out of him. I think he's an egomaniac, and I had to sit there and listen to him last year, press conference after his games, talk about how they could be undefeated after they had like 4 losses, and he was still saying it. We could be undefeated. Yeah, you could be, but you're not. But the truth is, they were in every single one of those games that they lost. They were definitely better than their record. And this year 2 with Dan Tonlin, who's a defensive coordinator I really believe in, and I think they'll be just as competitive and learn how to win. Sometimes you got to lose before you learn how to win. And I do see that team taking that step this year. At number 15, last year, when people were talking after the game about fire Ryan Day, and the counter argument to that was, well, who are you going to get? Who's out there? Who are you going to get? Which is people saying, well, there's no other guy who's as established and has won as much as Ryan Day, and assuming like that should be the candidate, one of those guys. That's exactly not who you hire in that situation, in my opinion. That's how you end up with a Jimbo Fisher. In my opinion, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I was making this argument last year. Rhett Lashley, a guy like Rhett Lashley, or a guy like Kenny Dillingham, like a guy that's a young dude that takes a program that has not been there to new heights. That's the kind of guy you want in that situation, which I wasn't for firing Ryan Day. I wasn't for hiring Rhett Lashley. I'm just saying, like, it's that kind of guy. And I continue to believe that Rhett Lashley and Kenny Dillingham are going to have a lot of success at SMU and Arizona State. And I actually got them at 15 and 14. At SMU, Kevin Jennings returns, had a bad game at Penn State. He's an awesome quarterback. And at 14, Kenny Dillingham's got Sam Levitt back. He loses Sam Scadaboo to the Giants, but they're going to be really good again too, potentially win the Big 12. And the Big 12, full of intrigue this year. At number 13, I cannot believe I'm doing this. I don't think anybody made as much fun of this guy as I did last year. Bonehead Billy Napier. That's my nickname for him. Bonehead Billy and the Florida Gators are at number 13. Obviously, everybody's a big believer in DJ Lagway. I'm included. He has not thrown until recently. Didn't throw all spring. Is something wrong with him? We don't know. But if this guy's healthy, I think he's the best quarterback in college football. Dallas Wilson, who's a freshman wide receiver that was committed to Oregon, 5-star kid, but from Florida, eventually flips to Florida. In the spring game, he goes off. 200 yards, looks like a man amongst boys, and they got Vernell Brown, and they got Michael Sturdivant, a really quality wide receiver from UCLA. I think they're going to put up points. And again, like Oklahoma, an insane schedule. They're not going to do well, but I think they deserve this ranking. That's where I've got them, right ahead of my number 12 team, South Carolina. You want to talk about a quarterback I love, man. I was just watching some more Lenoris Sellers last night, honestly. Lenoris Sellers, I'm watching him, 6'3", 240, and he's just a freelance guy, making plays everywhere. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking of Julian saying, going, my man, this big beast of a dude just trucking people fast as hell, throwing on the run. And I'm thinking about Julian saying, going, man, I hope this works, buddy. I hope this works. But really love South Carolina. Love what they got going on. I was not a believer in Shane Beamer. I thought it was a horrible hire. Made a lot of fun of him as well. Him and Bonehead Billy are getting me back here at number what am I at? 12 and 13 on my rankings. And at number 11, I can't even believe I'm doing this. This is a team with the top 3 transfer portal class. They spent so much damn money. Texas Tech. Texas Tech was beating the big boys for guys like Quentin Joyner. They beat Ohio State for a running back. Hunter Zambrano, an offensive lineman that we wanted. They beat all the big boys because they went all the way in. They got a billionaire backing them. He was teammates with the head coach, Joey McGuire, at Texas Tech. Joey McGuire, a really good head coach, a legendary high school coach down there. I had Texas Tech doing really well last year. They didn't. This is a fun experiment. And really, the last time we might ever see this, like some team off the beaten path that's able to just go spend that kind of money on guys, because it's officially over now. You're not going to be able to do this anymore. So it was a one-shot deal. They blew their load. We'll see what happens. I've got them at number 11. Now we get into the top 10. And at number 10, I've got last year's 4-loss Alabama team, Kalen DeBoer year 2. And I think this really comes down to how much do you believe in Kalen DeBoer? And I believe in Kalen DeBoer. I really do. I am a believer in Kalen DeBoer as a coach. This guy's a national champion winning coach, got a ton of experience, made it to a national championship at Washington in year 2 in a team that was ranked both years he was there in the 30s in recruiting. Like, they ended up having some sweet talent on that team, but it wasn't everywhere. They had some NFL guys, but it certainly wasn't everywhere. And I was just so impressed with him. So he goes down to Alabama, makes a big mistake. He made a huge mistake. They were coming from the Saban system, and he thought, I'm going to be a player's coach. I'm going to relax the regulations. I'm going to let the guys be the guys. Well, the guys looked like they were just chilling in spring and in the preseason, and then they went out and looked like that early in the season on the football field too. Now, he loses plenty of games. He changed. He buttoned things back up. Now things are mandatory again. You got to do things that you used to have to do under Saban. And I think that there's just a different sense there. I'm not totally a believer in Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator, but I do believe these guys are a top 10 team this year. They certainly have the talent, guys. They still got the talent. I mean, as irritating as it is, I went through the roster the other day and I'm just like, oh yeah, they still got him, because they had a lot of guys leave and a lot of guys come, but still a loaded roster, top 3 talent in the country. So do you believe in Kalen DeBoer? Ultimately, I think I do. Ty Simpson will be their quarterback. I don't know. I don't think he's awesome, but they still got Ryan Williams. They bring in Isaiah Horton from Miami, Jeremy Bernard. So the O-line's solid. The running backs are fine. The defense is talented. They're going to be a good team, and they're number 10. Now, number 9. Alabama's big games this year at Georgia, Tennessee at home, at South Carolina, then back-to-back home games against LSU and Oklahoma before the Iron Bowl. So games that they'll probably be dogs in at Georgia, maybe LSU. But all in all, they're going to be, favorites in almost all but 2 games, I think, this year. So pretty tough schedule, but the Tide are going to have to earn it if they make it to the playoffs, but they've got to make the playoffs this year or heads are going to roll. At number 9, I've got LSU. Now, again, Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley, the 2 coaches in the sport I hate the most. I think Hugh Freeze is a close third. But Brian Kelly, man, he is just such an unlikable guy. And because of that, people make fun of him. But despite that, he is a really good coach. Again, like Kalen DeBoer, this guy's a national championship winning coach. He was in Division I. Not Division III. Was it 1AA? Grand Valley State. He won multiple national championships. And coaches at lower levels that win national championships, it's not a big time national championship, but if you can do that and then come make yourself the all-time leader in wins at Notre Dame, I just think you got it in you. And I do think he has it in him. He's just a terrible guy. I just can't stand him. But the defense got so much better when they brought Blake Baker back from Missouri. And now we enter year 2 with Blake Baker. Garrett Nussmeier, a very good quarterback, in my opinion, who last year at times played hero ball because he had to, because they sucked. Not sucked, but they weren't as good as they should have been. You bring in Barry and Brown from Kentucky. Last year, I remember Brian Kelly talking about, we don't want you guys coming here. We don't want defensive linemen coming here if they just think they're going to come here and get paid. Well, he caved. We've been joking about Texas with their 5 defensive tackles. LSU brought in 5 defensive linemen as well. And LSU, not Texas Tech, had the number 1 portal class this year. They went all in financially. So they bring in a ton of new guys. A ton of them are 4-star talents. They got Fahim Delane's older brother, Mansour, that I wanted up at Ohio State. They also added another 4-star corner and a 4-star safety, a couple of offensive linemen, but it's the D line where they really improved. And I'm probably higher on LSU than most, but I definitely have LSU squarely in my top 10. At number 8, I've got Illinois, and this is for real. People have a hard time viewing this. I think it might be people's ages. Like the younger folks who've never seen a good Illinois team have a really hard time with this. More so than Indiana, maybe. And I think it's because maybe Kurt Signetti was this unknown, right? So he comes on and it's almost like this magic guy that just came on the scene. But everybody's known Brett Bielema forever. Everybody knows Bert. But I think some people forgot that some of Bert's teams at Wisconsin would have made this playoff. Bert can coach, man. And he plays a style of football that has a really high floor because they beat you up. And it's a physical brand of old school football. And they've got a quarterback in Luke Altmaier returning that knows what he's doing. They have the number 3 returning production in the country. This is a team. They did lose their top 2 wide receivers, a couple contributing defensive linemen, but they got guys in return. They lost their running back, which kind of sucks. Josh McCray to Georgia. I really think this is a school with a high floor. And when we look at this schedule, big games include at Indiana, USC at home, Ohio State at home, at Washington. The rest of them, they'll be solid favorites in. So USC and Ohio State at home. Can you split that? Maybe. Can you split Washington and Wisconsin? All you got to do is only lose 2 of those games. USC, Ohio State, Washington, and Wisconsin. If they only lose 2 of those, Illinois is in the playoff. Cake schedule. I think they can do it, and I think this is a playoff team. If I was betting now, I would bet Illinois in the playoffs. At number 7, boy, my buddy's not going to be happy here. I got a message today on Twitter from our buddy Stuart. Stuart is one of our Juckeyes, but he's a Dogs fan, Juckeye. And he said, nobody practices like Georgia. The Detroit GM just said so, just stating facts. And with that, I expect Georgia to be number 1 in the Juck on Bucks top 25 tomorrow. Go Dogs. Georgia's my number 7 team this year. Number 7 in the country. Ouch. Look, the Bulldogs last year took a bit of a step back. We can all admit that. They had a crazy tough schedule. Carson Beck wasn't very good. The defense wasn't anywhere near what we're used to from Georgia. The running game wasn't anywhere what we're used to from Georgia. The wide receivers led the world in drop passes. And they lost to Notre Dame, got beat up physically. This year, Gunnar Stockton. Everybody loves Gunnar Stockton in the Georgia organization. Kirby feels very confident with Gunnar Stockton. He's not as talented as Ryan Puglisi, but Kirby trusts him not to lose them games. And that ain't the mentality I want in my head coach. Now, they were aggressive in the portal with both wide receivers, bringing in the big dog from Texas A&M. Then they bring in Zach Branch from USC, who's electric. Got Taylor Taylor, a freshman coming in that I think is a guy who could potentially see the field this year. but we haven't heard from him yet, right? None of these guys, we've not seen him at Georgia. When we look at Zach Branch, made great plays as a punt returner. We've not seen it out of him as a wide receiver. And they weren't feeling good about their defensive line, obviously, in the spring portal. We're seeing Georgia go after every defensive lineman. And the fact that Georgia, who produces about 35% of the top 20 defensive linemen in the country every year, needed to go to the transfer portal to pull a kid out of West Point is like mind-blowing to me. Then they grabbed the kid from Miami too, but they did get him. And that kid from West Point, Mendoza, he's a stud. He really is. I kind of undersold him when we were first looking at all those guys. I went and looked at his film, man. He is a beast now. He fits. He'll look good in a Dog's uniform. But it just shows where we're at in college football, that Georgia and Ohio State and Texas, those three programs were the ones that were in the portal, in on all the defensive linemen. Number one, those are programs that can afford it, but really what it means is they keep getting their guys poached behind them, or you've had a dip in recruiting and a poor guys coming up behind them. Now, I know that Georgia and Texas have not had a dip in recruiting in defensive line. Ohio State has, but you've also lost a couple guys. Amari Aber, who was clearly a miss because he's never latched on. He's in the portal now still. Nobody wants him. And then you lost Hero Canoe to Texas. But for the Dogs, you lose quite a bit on defense, including Jalen Walker, Smail Munden. I think those guys are replaced with CJ Allen and Gabe Harris and Rylan Wilson. Super recruits, just like they were. The running game, Nate Frazier, I think is a really good back. I really like him. He's exciting as hell. And you bring in Josh McCray from Illinois, who I think will be better than Sabino or Etienne was last year. I almost said Etienne Sabino. Remember him? Than Etienne was last year. Etienne just didn't get it done, man. He just wasn't the dude. They were all excited about him last year. Did not work out. Josh McCray from Illinois, I think will have a much better year. 230 pounds. I love him. Toughest games on the Dogs' schedule. They're at Tennessee. They've got Alabama at home. Then they're at Auburn. They've got Ole Miss at home. Then Florida in the cocktail party and Texas. Will they be dogs in any of those games? They'll be dogs. No, I don't think they will be dogs against Texas at home. Ole Miss, no. Alabama at home, I don't think so. They should be favorites in every game this year, again, unless they lose a couple early. So we'll see. But for now, I've got them at 7. I don't think they deserve to be ranked any higher. I think this Georgia team is going to be pretty similar to last year's Georgia team. The running game, not quite as good. The defense, not as good as we're used to. They got better receivers, but they got a not as good quarterback passing the ball. He's going to use his feet more, and I think he'll be a pretty effective runner at times. But all in all, great coach, great coaching staff, tons of talent. It's a playoff team, right? It's just not an upper echelon team to me this year. At number 6, I've got Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. In my eyes, there are 4 programs that we can say right now in 2025 are capable of winning a national championship every year. Capable. The teams that have the infrastructure, they got the right successful coaching staff, they've got the financial support, and they've got the wherewithal to do whatever it takes to compete. Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, and Oregon. Those are the 4 teams right now that I feel have the right staffs, the right support, the wherewithal to do anything they need to do to win. And again, I'll go back to that transfer portal. Texas, Ohio State, Georgia. Those were the guys that were after every one of those defensive linemen. Does that mean they needed them more than everybody else? Or does that mean they're the ones with the wherewithal to do whatever it takes and the means to do so, right? I think it's a bit of both, really. But those 4 programs, top of college football right now. I think if we see Notre Dame put up another season like they put up last year, and it doesn't have to be that deep run into the playoffs, but another 11-win season, that Notre Dame is really now in this category. Like they're 1 season away. We're talking about a fan base and a program with a lot of money, a ton of support. He's got the right staff. He's got the right staff for sure. He's hiring great. And now what I'm seeing on the recruiting end is a different level of recruit that now wants to be part of Notre Dame in bigger numbers. Saw him last year start off hot, ended up petering out, finishing like 14th. I don't think that happens this year. Elite guys. They're beating Ohio State in defensive line recruiting now. Like, things are different. And I think Marcus Freeman is going to turn Notre Dame into a program that reaches the heights where you can say every year we can pencil them in, just like Georgia, just like Oregon, I feel about now, just like Texas, just like Ohio State. They're going to be competing for the national championship every year. I also think Alabama is borderline that. If DeBoer makes it to the playoffs this year, Alabama's right back in that category where, yeah, we can count on them competing every year for a national championship because they're going to have the talent. And now we know they got the coaching staff. So Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love is fantastic. He may be my favorite back in the country. And we'll see what CJ Carr's got. A stud quarterback coming out of high school. Has he progressed enough? Does he have some lumps maybe to take? But when we talk about their schedule, boy, is this something. Wait till I tell you this schedule. They've got Miami. They've got Texas A&M. So they start off with those two banger games, right? Then they've got Purdue, Arkansas, Boise, which imagine they'll take a step back this year, North Carolina State, USC, Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, and Stanford. They've got 3 games that sound like they're going to be competitive games. So Notre Dame will be right back in the playoffs. That's almost a certainty to me here. All right, getting into the top 5. My top 4, I'm adamant about. I'm adamant about the top 4. These are the top 4 best teams in the country. Number 5, just missing that cut this year, is Oregon. Now, I might even be higher on Oregon than some of the top 25s I've seen. The Ducks lose a ton from the team that lost in the Rose Bowl. And boy, did they lose in the Rose Bowl. But they go and they bring in Emmanuel Pridgeon and Isaiah World, 2 of the top 5 tackles in the portal. So plug those dudes in, boom. Your offensive line's set already because they had the interior, just like Ohio State had the interior returning. They bring in Dylan Thieneman, the best safety in the portal. They get one of the best tight ends in the portal, Jamari Johnson. They took a flyer on Bear Alexander. Who knows if that'll pay off or not? I'm guessing it doesn't. He got pushed around in the spring game. That guy's just unbelievable. I don't know why they would take a flyer on him. They seem like they're above that at this point, but apparently not. But their best portal move is they bring in superstar 5-star freshman Naeem Offord's older brother, Mekhi Hughes, who was a running back at Tulane, the best running back in the portal. You notice how I said the best. They got the best of the best in the portal at 5 different positions, which is pretty amazing. But they got a couple of freshmen that are also going to contribute a little bit in Naeem Offord and Trey McNutt, Cleveland's own. DeCorian Moore, going to be a really good freshman. He's already showing out. Dante Moore at quarterback started at UCLA for a lot of his freshman year. Then he sat last year behind Dylan Gabriel. The dude's got all the tools. He's a 5-star quarterback coming out. Looked bad his freshman year, but he had some moments where you could see, oh, it's there. Does he now turn the corner at Oregon after sitting for a year? I'm at the point now where I trust Will Stein to get whoever is playing quarterback humming that offense. Like, it's going to go good. I have trust in that. The most telling thing when we look at both of those portal windows, despite losing Jordan Birch and Derek Harmon, 2 of their 3 best defensive linemen last year, they only brought in Bear Alexander, just a flyer on him, when they could go after anybody. They weren't after any of those guys in the spring portal. Why? It means they're very comfortable with who they got because they're not shy about going to pay whoever they want to pay for, right? So if they're solid with Mateo Uyunglele and who they got on the roster at defensive line, which is a question area that I would have had for them, I got to feel pretty damn good about them right now. Big games include at Penn State, Indiana at home, at Iowa, USC at home, and at Washington, which means they're going to be dogs in one game at Penn State, and they can lose that game, and they can slip up one more time and still make the playoffs. I think Oregon's a lock for the playoffs. Now, on to my top four. And as I said, I'm adamant about this top four. And the order with which they're in may change here and there as we head into the season. But right now at number 4, I have the team with the number 1 returning production in the country, and that's Clemson. A playoff team with the number 1 returning production in the country, I wouldn't have an issue if somebody had them number 1. They play in the ACC, and they are quite clearly the best team by a good bit in the ACC, with Miami taking a step back a little bit. I got Louisville in the top 25. Florida State sucks. Georgia Tech should be pretty good. They're in a lot of people's top 25. Syracuse taking a big step back. But this is the dominant team in the conference. They bring back 8 offensive starters, including their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, who was really good last year. Learned how to run. They've got Bryant Wesco, Antonio Williams. They've got wide receivers that are, like they used to look back in the day when they were killing everybody. On defense, you got Peter Woods. You got Sammy Brown in the middle. Like, they bring back a ton of talent. They got 2 first-rounders on the defensive line. It was poorly coached in 2024, that defensive crew, but the talent is there. What do? They bring in Tom Allen from Penn State, who will immediately make them more competent. They've got Garrett Riley coaching the offense now. Like, we saw Dabo, moron, win national championships. And when his staff got depleted, when his people left, he hired from within guys that weren't worthy of being those coaches. They were over their head. Well, we've now seen him go a different direction. He's changed his ways. He's got the right coaches in there now, I think, coaching the offense and the defense. Obviously, the recruiting in the past 2 years has not been up to standard. They were never consistently a top 5 program in recruiting, but we're talking like outside the top 15, which some of their fans will say that's because they were small classes, and they were, but yeah, that still counts in the rankings. You got to bring in a lot of good guys, especially when you're not bringing in many portal guys. And he did cave on that, brought in like 3 this cycle. But the point is, they got a lot of talent. They got a coach who has done something that nobody else coaching college football has done, which is take a program that was consistently very good and turn them into a giant slayer. Nobody else has done that. And he's still a young guy. So he's made some mistakes. He's learned from mistakes. He's surrounded himself by better coaches. He went through a period of, we're going to keep it all in-house, and that didn't work. He switched it up. The big games on the schedule include LSU to kick it off at home, SMU at home, at Louisville, at South Carolina. So after game 1 against LSU, they are pretty sizable favorites until South Carolina at the end of the year, I think. And, like I said, you can lose them both. You're still making the playoffs. So, and they'll have a shot maybe even losing those both to still make the playoffs in the ACC championship. But I think they're definitely a playoff team. And they've now got veterans who played in the playoffs last year. Klubnik, I think, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country. Like, this team could absolutely win the national championship, and I think it would surprise a lot of people. Not me, man. Not me at all. So, squarely in my top 4, they're at number 4 this week, is Clemson. At number 3, I've got the Ohio State Buckeyes. The offensive line replacing Josh Simmons and a Remington Award-winning center. Now, those weren't the guys that won the national championship. Austin Sareveld emerged likely as the right tackle. Ethan Onyanwa as the left tackle. That's a guy with the opportunity to play himself into the second or even first round. So a solid offensive line. You got better at tight end, bringing in Max Clare. The running backs look like Ohio State running backs to me. C.J. Donaldson, James Peoples, Bo Jackson. The wide receiver room with Jeremiah Smith in year 2, Carnell Tate in year 3, and Brandon Innes, maybe a slight step down from Emeka so far. Overall, I think that the wide receiver room is better. The defense, studs coming back all over the field. The back seven may be the best in the country. Obviously, the defensive line, we've talked about it a ton. You got quality dudes. We've never seen them start. A couple of them, some of us are really high on them. I did a poll. Who are you more confident in is going to be the better pair? K-Mac and Edric in the middle, or Caden Curry and Kenyatta on the outside? Now, that was before they brought in Buckeye Bo. Buckeye Bo Atkinson comes in, and I think it's now Kenyatta and Bo, and it just might change things. But the vast majority of Buckeye fans more confident in the two younger guys in the middle. But the defensive line certainly, and the quarterback. These are the two things that we have questions about at Ohio State. Ultimately, those are two really bad spots to have questions. The only worst two spots to me would be offensive line and quarterback. But defensive line and quarterback, it's still a great team. It's still a top 3 team. But how high is their ceiling? Because we're talking national championship area now. Right now, the Buckeyes are at 3 for me. At number 2, we've only got two teams left, guys. Texas and Penn State. At number 2, I've got Texas. For starters, there are people in every walk of life, in every business, no matter what you're in, that just get it. And Steve Sarkisian, to me, you listen to his press conferences when they got knocked out of the playoffs last year at the Cotton Bowl from Ohio State. He was just proud of his guys, man. He knows that if he keeps plugging away, they're going to break through. This is 2 straight years in the semifinals. It's also a dude who's been through some personal life struggles. Remember, he was a really good coach at Washington, got himself the USC job until his alcoholism derailed his career. Had that not happened, who knows where this guy'd be? I mean, there's a chance we could be talking about him like we talk about Kirby Smart right now. Or there's a chance he needed that to become this coach. Whether or not you believe in Arch Manning as a superstar, I don't think there's anybody that feels he's not going to be good. At least at minimum, he's going to be good, right? He's a 6'4" beast who can run 20 miles an hour, a cannon for an arm, who's very smart and essentially has done everything right since he's been there. They bring back one of the best backs, maybe the best in college football, in C.J. Baxter, who was out last year with injury. Will he be 100%? They've got one of the best wide receivers in college football in Ryan Wingo. They got a freshman in Khalil Lockett, who I think is an instant impact guy. Also, Jamie French. But they lost a lot. 103rd in returning production. Like Ohio State, they're in the hundreds. Like Oregon, in the hundreds. They didn't go to the portal to load up on the offensive line. We saw what they did on the defensive line, so we know what they're willing to do if they need it, which tells us what? Their offensive line is in good hands. They're cool. They've been recruiting the hell out of it. All you need is a couple of those guys on the defensive line out of the 5 to be hits. And, there's some pieces, parts there that I think you can make it work. They bring back Ant Hill at middle linebacker. You got Michael Taffy, All-American at safety, comes back. You remember he's the one that was after the game that people either felt bad for or were making fun of. That's a former walk-on turned into an All-American. That dude's a stud, man. I'll take him on my team any day. They got Colin Simmons, the Sean Alexander freshman of the year last year, beat Jeremiah Smith and Dylan Stewart from South Carolina, and deserved to beat Dylan Stewart, not JJ, but deserved to beat Dylan Stewart. But ultimately, Texas is everything Georgia and Ohio State were before they did it. Kirby and Ryan Day both had to keep putting themselves in position before they could finally break through. And Texas is where they are, where they were, where both Georgia and Ohio State were, putting themselves in position and in position. The curious thing here, the interesting thing, when we look at Ohio State and we look at Texas, we look at Ohio State, I think we all acknowledge that 26 is actually the year where this could be a very special Ohio State team, even though, because of the competition, 25 capable of winning it all if a couple of things break right. If Sayin turns out to be a very competent quarterback, if the defensive line stays healthy. But 26, really the year. Texas, in my opinion, same scenario. Same scenario. I don't think Arch Manning's going anywhere. You look at, people are saying, well, if he's a top 5 pick, well, what makes you say so? Both Eli and Peyton Manning chose to stay for their senior year. Both were guaranteed top 5 picks after their junior year, and they weren't making any money. They were leaving millions on the table to stay in college, to experience college. Arch is making a ton of money. This is a very wealthy family. The advice they gave him was to go sit and be quiet and happy behind Quinn Ewers for 2 years. Don't push the issue. Just take your, do it right. Do it right. I'm almost sure he's going to be there as a senior, especially if they don't win a national championship. So, awesome thing is, in both 25 and 26, Ohio State and Texas play each other. And man, we might be looking at the 2 best teams playing each other in both 25 and 26, which is really cool. We might see a rematch in 25 or 26 in the playoffs of these 2 teams after they open the season both years playing each other. How cool would that be? And at number 1, gosh, my voice is killing me. Ugh. The Pennsylvania State University, you can look at this a couple different ways when we look at the success they had last year. They made it to the Final Four, winning a couple playoff games, but did they actually improve upon prior years? They beat SMU in Boise. SMU was a home game. They had the easiest draw of the entire playoffs. And then they lost to Notre Dame on a terrible play at the end by a quarterback that people will question if he can ever make it over the hump, or will he always be good for a bonehead move like that? What makes us think they'll be any different? They lost their best defensive weapon in Abdul Carter, their best offensive weapon in Tyler Warren. They do retain a lot of weapons. They bring back Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Drew Aller, his senior year. On defense, Dennis Denai Sutton, Dom DeLuca. They got the cornerbacks. The bottom line for me on the defense is you got a good defense to start with, and you bring in Jim Knowles. It does take a couple of years to get his whole defense installed. But they started with a higher baseline of talent than Ohio State had when he came in. The biggest thing that we all knew they needed was the wide receivers. And they went out and they finally stepped it up. They bring in Trevor Pena from Syracuse, who is very good. Not a superstar, but he's very good. Devontae Ross from Troy, actually the one I think might be the most impactful. The one that's not getting talked about. Everybody's talking about the kid from USC, the Trevor Pena from Syracuse. Devontae Ross is a burner, possession guy. Bing, bing, bing. Aller's got weapons now. You've got it in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Everybody acknowledges this is a really talented team. Without those wide receivers, you needed them to jump the final rung of the ladder here. They get those receivers in, and now it's shifted to, but you got James Franklin. James Franklin has always lost to every team that he's supposed to lose to, and he beats the teams that he's supposed to beat, right? Like, that's his MO. Well, what happens if he has a better team than everybody else? He's going to beat you. And this year, I think Penn State, entering the season as it sits right now, and it feels weird as hell, especially as an Ohio State fan, I think that Penn State has the best team in the country, which means I think James Franklin is going to beat everybody in the country. And I think right now Penn State is going to win the national championship. Now, my voice hurts. I love you guys. It's your friend Juck. I'm out of here. Have a good one.